Uh, over yonder. I mean, the real bit would be to crash the stream right now.
Yeah.
and
Would
then
it?
and then load it back up
Yeah.
right as I'm about to get into the good stuff over here.
So I messaged you. I messaged you that your powers are increasing in their vitality and range, to which you responded with, I think you just said LOL.
Mm-hmm.
That's Woolie, I have so many questions about you beating Yakuza 0.
There's really just probably a single answer, I imagine. You know?
I don't okay, one, wow, man, even the game is trying to extend the length of that LP. Like, absolutely wild. That is, I remember when you restarted that, I was very much like, yeah, Woolie's lost his mind. I don't know what he's doing. He's crazy. And then you kept going. And I'm like, I'm stupid. You may be crazy, but I'm stupid, because clearly you should have kept going. That was a great idea. But the game disagrees.
The game disagrees. Yeah. So I finished off Yakuza 0, and the finale will be coming out shortly this week on WoolieVersus. And it's been a journey, you know, the journey that started 4 years ago. Now, albeit that is a disingenuous way to frame it, because there's a giant hiatus in the middle, nonetheless.
Nah, man, it took you 4 years, just like game development.
No matter what.
You restarted it, yeah, but I mean, to the consumer, they see 4 years.
An entire presidential administration has occurred. Yes.
How do you feel about Oda and how he was so cool?
Oh, man. I mean, that, like... the entire ride through the game and the way morality is handled, right, is just, it's not even the like anime Naruto thing as much as I'm like, is this just what's the director's name again? Nagoshi making it so that he can look back at his actual Yakuza friends and have them nod in approval and go, yeah, that guy wasn't a good guy, but he was serious about the life, and he went out the way he lived.
It really feels like, as long as you stick to your guns and stand up and fight at the end,
no matter what.
Like, yeah. Awano was such a cool guy. Yeah, he shot those women for literally no reason.
It doesn't matter how many bullets you put into the innocent woman right over there to make your point. It's all about standing your ground at the end, you know, and making sure you go out.
Nagoshi's gone now from the Yakuza series. Okay. And I will tell you that Yakuza, so when you play Infinite Wealth, Kiryu can go back to a bunch of places and reminisce. And there is one for Oda in which you go to Cafe Alps and go, you know, I met a guy named Oda here, and he taught me all about business. And then it has a line break, and it goes, I never liked that guy. He was an asshole.
Interesting.
So it took them like 10 years, but Kiryu does walk it back and go, no, you know what? That guy was a prick.
So the way that Oda gets introduced, though, is like, you're like defending this dude who's hanging. He's the last, you know, person in this empty building, and they're trying to pressure him out, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna go, I'm staying, this is where me and my family live. And then they have the squatters that are trying to pressure him out.
This big old wad of money and slap it in your face.
Bitch slaps him with the wad, and you're like, whoa, this dude, that he's like that, right? And it's this weird moment, because you're like, oh, look at this fucking asshole, right? Look at that swagger. And then the guy that you're defending goes, I've been waiting for this payout, and then completely scums it out, and you're like, wait, you're the guy that I was just defending, where's your integrity? And he's like picking the money up off the ground and, you know, being the exact opposite of what Nagoshi's friends would like. They're back there going, oh no, fuck that guy, you know?
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, so then Oda was right to be mad here then?
He was right. He was right.
You know, and then it's like, and he's working for Tachibana, and then you get the whole bit, and then you learn about the, you know, the full on backstory and all that.
So yeah, listen. I'm dying. And yeah, okay. So I sold some people into sex slavery.
Come to fucking find out the bat tattoo is the same that he's rocking, and the literal, like, the main character's trauma point is because this guy just snatched her up and was like, going about his business, you know, and now we can all just move past that point. And like, and as soon as that moment is discovered and you link the pieces together, less than 5 minutes later, it's like, hey, he's gonna do his last stand, and everyone's like, no, but wait, what about him though? What about Trafficker-kun? You know? And I'm like, this is the third trafficking fucking asshole that's been given the right of way, because we were just like a couple minutes out from
crazy
the Pleasure King, who also is like trafficking women, and you're like, yeah, but why don't you join my real estate gang though? You're pretty good at what you do. And then there's the side story I talked about, where it's like the Visa pizza bit, you know, and it's like, oh, the trafficker found his change of heart when Kiryu beat him up, and he's actually in love with the woman that he's been trafficking, and he's hoping that he can turn his life around. So yeah, he had a rough go. Just play that organ music, man. Give him a chance.
So you're like fully through a full Yakuza game now, and so now I can like dive into. I've talked when I played 1 and 0 and 7 and 8. I talk about how like these games are. So Kojima is like giving a TED talk about how he feels about a bunch of subjects, right? Like Kojima is just spouting from it. And the Yakuza games are like a Dragon games. They want to like converse with you about all these topics, but like the dudes writing it are like old-fashioned criminal friend having Japanese guys. So you're like, it feels like you're talking to a guy and he's like, man, sex workers deserve respect. And just because they're not on the up and up, that doesn't mean that, right? But he's like, you know that friend of yours who has friends and those friends terrify you?
Yeah.
Right? And so like he's like on the level, but they'll be like, oh, you know, can Jimmy come hang out? And I'm like, Jimmy's a rapist.
Yeah,
no, Jimmy can't come out with hang out with us.
Who invited that guy? Yeah. No, I don't think it's a conversation though. I think it's like a punchline from a Manzen comedy duo. Is, you know, as we graze over the topic of each of these things, like, hey, remember when you were a kid and you saw your first nudie mag? Yeah, wasn't that wild? I remember. That's it. That's the end of the thought, you know. And you like, what if Kiryu had to insert himself into that situation?
Like, listen, is it better to give like a 10-year-old a graphic pornographic magazine out of a vending machine, or to destroy his faith in
adults, right? Hey, you remember the old days when you used to go over to the telephone club and you'd call up all the girls on the phone, and then you'd get into these wild, saucy, raunchy, debaucherous tales on the phone at the telephone club and see if you could meet up offline? That's the ultimate goal. You remember those days, right?
It is wild because Kiryu is beloved. People love Kiryu, and Kiryu is like a great hero in his own narrative. But I have never in my life read any work, watched any show, or played any game more than Kiryu's games where Kiryu is like, I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm sitting there going, no, what? That's not the right, what the fuck? That's wrong. You're doing the wrong thing. You're wrong. You're actually doing like something objectively bad.
But if you have the spirit though, if you have the spirit and you just, if you keep your head held high and you say it with your chest, then at the end of the day, it was the right thing. Because the organ music is backing you up.
Like, one of the weirdest takeaways is the secret Korean saga is like, listen, there might be Koreans hiding among us at any time, and we can't be looking over our shoulder for the secret Koreans, because even if they are evil, I can beat them up when they reveal themselves. And it's like, what the fuck? How is this the takeaway? This is super weird.
It just, yeah, again, just as long as you have resolve and conviction, your actions are correct in retrospect. You know, we can sort out the details later. Incredible. I think, like, the whole time I don't really know much about Majima except he's the knife licking.
Oh, I'll tell you what,
rival.
Like 80% of his total characterization over the series is in the game you just played.
Yeah, well, so as the thing that I know of the crazy, you know, leopard jacket man going, Kiryu-chan, that, you know, I know that, and he pops out of the trash and he's the rival, right? It's interesting because I was seeing him the first time he walked in with like the suit and the everything at the cabaret. I was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? Who's this super suave? His introduction is incredible. He's like the lord of, you know, of not Maharaja. Anyway, his cabaret club. He's incredible.
The Grand.
And I thought that there would be a like sort of descent into madness to create the character we know.
No, it actually happens entirely off screen between the ending and the post credits.
It's just it's just
super weird, right?
But I mean, even when he's saying goodbye to Shimano, like he's not Shimano, anyway, to the other dude, he's like, I put on this jacket because fuck it. You know, he loses everything and he spiritually gets broken, and then he finds some determination to come back around for Makoto's sake. But he kind of just like, Sagawa. But he kind of has like, there's the other crazy guy that like dies in the jail
that he clearly emulates,
and like the spirit of that dude's madness go into him. Like he breathes in the death fumes and goes a little bit more crazy, I guess.
You get just tiny little pieces here and there. In 1 and 2, you get to hang out with him a lot as a boss and as a recurring antagonistic force. In 4, you get to find out how he lost his eye.
Okay.
And then in 5, you get to find out about his ex-wife.
Oh wow.
But like, yeah, no, Zero was like building us up to like, all right, when's he gonna decide he just wants to go ape shit? And the answer is off camera.
It just happens.
He's just like, and like, you're like, oh, he's kind of faking it.
Yeah, because, you know, the whole bit is like, I'm like, oh man, I wonder how they're gonna meet. I hope it's a really cool moment, because I'm a huge fan of like when two characters have a long build up and like their first meeting is a thing. But then again, I'm also like, oh, but I'm sure in the first game there might be a scene that might get retconned if you fuck it up by going.
No, it's not. It's just like you have an introduction for Majima in the first game, and he's like the first guy you meet.
Okay, so yeah, so I was waiting to see what would happen here, if anything, you know, and then it ends up just being like, actually, we're building up the idea that like, oh, 2 ships in the night, you know, which is fine.
What's interesting is that so Yakuza 0 came out after 4 and 5, and after 0 came out, when you run into him, he's faking it less.
Interesting. Okay.
Like you can see that there's like a time to turn it on and time to chill out,
because it feels as if the game wrapped up and then they went, wait a minute, some people are going to be really upset and go, what the hell, they never meet? So they put in a last scene where he goes, Kiryu-chan, and he goes,
I think it is awesome that they literally meet for 1 line of dialogue at the very end of the game.
But it makes no sense contextually. There's no reason for that ever. How would he even know it's him? Is it happening as the first time?
The end of 0 and the post credit are like a year apart.
Okay. Because it's just, the thought is like, does he know that that's him? And if so, where is that coming from? You know, it's just this kind of like moment of like, okay, we have to do this because what the fuck, you can't have this whole game go by and not put it in there. but it doesn't make sense, right? Anyway,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, sure. I'm not, but that's the thing is I thought that what they were setting up here was going to be this kind of like degradation into the character that's nuts, you know. You want to get nuts?
The events
Let's get nuts.
Zero
And it's
are
like,
really bad for Majima. Like it sucks for him.
It does. And when he's at his lowest, you know, like that's a real moment he's going through. But all the bits after the fact are still these like, no, you're a pretty fucking stand-up guy. And in fact, the last bit he does with Makoto with the watch is fucking gangster. Like, incredible. What a boss, you know? So you're saner than ever by the end of that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and what? Okay, all right, here we go. You know? So yeah, that was not what I expected them to do at all, and that's not the way they went with it. And I guess the other bit is like, it's cool. It is nice seeing the styles come together to be, you know, the styles that they're known for. That is a cool thing for both of the legendary styles.
It also is nice that when you get those styles, the game isn't ready for you.
If you have
like they're so overpowered.
It does suck that like Kiryu's journey to legend is so much drier than the cabaret path. When I got to...
That's because you like the cabaret minigame.
Yes.
If you hate the cabaret minigame, you would be in hell.
Oh, fair enough. The cabaret minigame was phenomenal. It was so much fun. But also but they put more love into it. Music, makeover, dress up.
That's because the cabaret minigame in some form is going to be in every single game.
Okay. But like I'm like, even objectively, if you're into the real estate, they just made less to do. They made it drier, you know. There's just not as much going on. And like both games, once you know how they work and you're going through the motions of it, it's just, you know, a simple rote mechanic. But you know, the cabaret minigame, you still have that feeling of when you're getting really good at a beer tapper style game, you know, managing the customers coming in, output, input, etc. And like, yeah, the entire time the money you're doing in the real estate stuff is just so background passive. Go waste time and then come check back in while the bar fills up. So
let me ask you, you've started the Like a Dragon series with Zero, and you've now completed Zero with an estimated play time of 4 years. Now, these games come out on average every 10 months. So what's the plan for the future for Woolie in the Like a Dragon series?
Why does there have to be a plan? Why can't I just live today in the moment? Why does everything have to be a big thing?
Well, the main reason I ask is because I think you're like a third of the way through 7 or something like that. And I remember you talking it up that you really liked it.
Yeah, probably less than that though. It was only like 10 hours or so, you know. No, I really enjoyed it, but I realized as you know, over time, I was like, okay, let me see what's worth seeing. It's not going to be every side quest, but let me see what's entertaining. And I had a really good time with a lot of those. The really like the biggest lull was truly just the real estate stuff to get that fighting style. Everything else I did not feel, and I was not like as annoyed by, but man, that was a huge slowdown in progress. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was a surprise to me as well to discover that you guys did a bunch of shit off camera and just didn't go for the full bit on camera.
Well, that was back in the like episodes a day time, right? Like that would have been a year. On the old timing.
Yeah, that
would have been way too long.
So, you know, when the game is good and I enjoy it, I like to see all the good things it has to offer, and I do feel as well some obligation in the sense of like a let's play should incorporate those things, you know. It should also be like like I'm not gonna be able to get like every variant of every path or whatever, but at some point, like with Disco, it's like you're sticking to your choices and going and getting what you can to see as much as you can of the good stuff. But Yakuza, when you have one left random turn might have you walking into a hilarious Michael Jackson side quest that you can easily just miss. And that's a really fun one you want to catch. And it would be less fun to not get that, but it would be more practical. It sucks to have to, be like, this is good, but I don't know if we should do it.
It's extra fun because characters like aforementioned Miracle Johnson, and I think he's in Zero, but Korean drama actor Il Yujin show up like over and over and over and over. As like legitimate side characters. Okay. That Kiryu just happens to run into.
So yeah,
that guy's from 2 onwards. Okay,
we've talked about how some of the other games are shorter as well, and so on. But I know that like this game definitely presented a problem where I was like, I'm enjoying the main and I'm enjoying the sides, and there's just too much game, and this is like while ignoring stuff that is like. You can gamble, you can have fun, you can do all of that stuff.
You want to do the bug mini game with the women?
Christ. It's just too much, and there's no way to properly get all that without having to cut corners somewhere, and choosing where and how to handle that is like it sucks, but it's like, okay, if I ever did have to go back, I would have to create a list of side quests worth doing, knowing exactly where to go to get them and how to keep it on a tight schedule, because the fun of a game like this in its ability to replace Shenmue is that you can wander through Tokyo, you can wander through these 2 living neighborhoods and just kind of like experience them, but for the purposes of like let's playing it has to be on rails. Like there's
but I should mention when I asked you what's next, I didn't ask what's next for WoolieVersus. I asked what's next for Woolie, the person, the individual.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I did really enjoy my first 10 hours of 7, and I know I could go do that. I also know I could get started on the rest of those games at some point in some way. But yeah, I mean, realistically, like, I'm not going to play them off camera. If I do come back to the series, it'll be on camera. And if I do come back to the series, it'll be with a definitive list of side content that's like worth seeing, and how to do that within a like reasonable time frame and structure.
I do have a piece of mandatory side content for you if you ever go back to the Yakuza series. It's called Binary Domain. It's a sub-story that's weirdly long and has a lot of shooting in it.
Okay, but it still ends with the guitar and the little note that says "end" at the end, right?
Yeah, actually.
And you get your completion points. Good.
Yes.
Yeah. So that like I just know that the whatever I came back to, it would be planned. I'd be looking at like, okay, here's how long it takes, and if you mainline it, and then here's the stuff you do in between, and here's exactly. I'd also need to go and be like, I know that from this point forward, you can no longer do this, or you will no longer have this access to this side quest, or so on. Like, it would take some of that discovery and fun out of that, the unknown and such. But yeah, I think as well, when we kind of started out, when Reggie joined and we started doing like these things, there was a discussion, and I kind of looked at like how many times we can have a double blind LP versus a semi-blind, right? Semi-blinds are always great. Those are historically a really good way for somebody to experience a brand new thing while the other person's able to guide it and keep it on the rails. Double blind has worked out pretty well so far in the more recent arc of stuff. But here's a franchise that absolutely like hits a wall on that, because it's just the whole game is about how much there is to it.
As somebody who's now gone through all of them, I think the only one I haven't finished is Judgment 2. The ability to have somebody in your vicinity or a trusted person in online to just be like, this is worth doing, this is not worth doing.
Yep.
Is stupid vital.
And yeah, and again, as people that watch me are kind of used to seeing a, not completionist, but main plus extras, right? If we're going by the HLTB time requirement, then yeah, I don't want to have a game where I'm cutting out the side shit, we're mainlining it or anything like that, you know? So it would just be like, all right, I know that when I do see this stuff, it'll be great regardless, but I'll know exactly what's getting started at what point and when to go for it, and it'll just be a point by point thing. And
I can give you a really good example. Kiwami 1, right? The direct sequel to 0. There are like 3 side quests of value in that whole game, because in Yakuza 1, 99% of side quests were bump into a guy on the street, he will now try and scam you. When the scam doesn't work, he'll try and kill you. Like, that is the same shit, like, over and over and over and over and over and over and over. It's crazy. It's nuts how many of them are that.
I think that, like, yeah, I mean, no matter what, like I said, I'm gonna be taking a break. I've had my fill of Yakuza for quite a bit. But of all the compromises you'd have to make to either concede content on camera, time, or in this case, just, I guess, foreknowledge of what's coming to some degree, I think that's the least damaging. And I wouldn't want to either, like, have to do a, like, off, because in Elden Ring, the whole, like, last time on Elden Ring bits are kind of like fine. I can just screenshot moments and
well, it's not narrative.
Yeah.
It's not little adventures. It's like, hey, let's check out what was in this cave.
Fun lore and cool boss fight tries, But in this case, it's like an entire buildup of a side quest of a character you're never going to see again. So yeah, that just doesn't make any sense to do the off-screening shit or whatever. So that's how I'd approach it going forward.
I will say one thing, and as this is something that I've run into as somebody playing the games on or near release. I have seen this happen a bunch of times with people who, grab the games on sale, or they've heard people talk it up and they play 0 and they're like, holy shit, this shit's amazing. I want to catch up. And they run into a really strong problem. And that is the Like a Dragon games are annual. They are annual. They may not come out every year on the dot, but like they come out every 10, 11 months. And they are mechanically like pretty much the same game over and over for like 17 years.
Okay. Yeah.
When you go like, hey, I'm going to do 0, now I'm going to do 1, now I'm going to do 2, now I'm going to do 3, it kind of feels like you're playing one game that's like 17 times the size of a regular game. And they all ask you to do the same kinds of side quests and the same kinds of mini games and the same kinds of stuff. They're really similar aside from their narratives and their side quests. It is super easy to burn out, and all improvements are very incremental.
Yeah.
Like Yakuza 4 was like, dude, you can go on rooftops in Kamurocho now. Whoa. Right? Like,
yeah, I also feel like the shit, what was I gonna say? Not the length, not the older stuff. Oh yeah, the fighting is like not every style is built equal. The combat's like the combat's pretty goofy at times. Sometimes it works well and it's flowing and it's going. Other times it's like very limiting and kind of weird, but overall, you have a lot of options, and it takes a while to build up the money and get them. And sometimes you're going down a pathway of like, these are all money being spent on an incremental point that I don't care about to get to something I might. But if the version of the combat in 0 is like one of the later and thus more refined ones, I know that going back in time means a rougher version.
I will tell you right now,
rougher version.
The combat in 0 is the best
the action
combat series ever got.
That's the thing. That's what I'm thinking of the whole time. I'm like, this has issues, and this is the refined version of it. I can feel that.
The Lost Judgment, I think, is the only one that gives it a run for its money, but like right up at the top. And like then you get into really weird things where Kiwami 1 is like a worse version of Zero's combat, but then Kiwami 2 is an improved version of 6's combat because it was a different engine, and then 3 is just 3 from like 2006 and is now the worst playing of all of them. And because of the way the remakes and re-releases went, as you go numerically, you're bouncing between times, and it's super weird. It's super fucking weird.
What about the action in like the last Kiryu Sides game?
Gaiden?
Yeah.
It's good, but it's a little goofy because they're trying weird stuff. That is a DLC. Like it's not a DLC, it's a full release. But it's better. It's probably the best that the Dragon combat has been outside of Judgment.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, there's always yeah, I'll see how I feel in the future, but I also know that there's also left field possibilities as well. You know, I've discussed and been told about a couple of different options, but besides there's the Kiwamis and the 3s and 4s and all that stuff, like the wild possibility of going to something like what was it? It was the PS2 version of Yakuza 1.
No.
That could be interesting. That people have not seen.
No.
You know, that could be an interesting way.
Woolie, I need to stop you right now. Whoever told you that was fucking with you, because the Yakuza PS1, that's the game that came out in 2004. Sorry, PS2 came out in 2004. That's the first one I played. Mm-hmm. There's 2 things going on in that is going to make you lose your mind. Okay. The first of which is holding R1 to lock onto an enemy and dash to the side was invented for fucking Yakuza 2.
Okay.
You're locking on and you're blocking. You have no evasion at all. And the second thing is that every single random battle you will ever get into in Yakuza 1, you will have the guy be like, I'll beat you up. And then it will cut to like the thugs or, you know, Yakuza Clan Syndicate or whatever, that title screen. And then it will load the game for 20 to 45 seconds while the battle music plays.
That's bad.
And that is
that's rough.
Every single time you get into a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing there's some bullshit that gets fixed in Kiwami, it could be interesting. Like, I'd go feel it out first if I ever were to take a look, for example, to see what all of that felt like in action. But I do know that it is interesting because a lot of people only have seen Kiwami, for example. So it'd be interesting to see the thing that most people have not seen. You know, it could be a fresh take on something that people know but don't know. But yeah, you know, none of this would be done without you know, generous amounts of research either way. But that was something that was put on the table as like okay, I see how that could be different. But all this to say, yeah, like the last sequence was pretty fucking hype. It was a lot of fun getting.
It always is.
Getting that final, you know, arc with both characters going through, and I feel as well that's when I was really coming together with the styles and the style switching, and using them for every environment. It was a whole lot of fun. I got the counters in the right place and started to really feel it out. And yeah, man, on the last QTE, fucking against Shimano, no, shit, oh god,
Nagase.
No,
it's been a while.
The glasses guy, not Awano, not Kuze, but something SH anyway. Shibusawa. He just, you're going into that fucking sick final of there's more than one dragon, and the fucking game crashes, dude. And I'm just
it's pretty easy to forget characters that never come back.
Fucking RGG team, Sega, I don't know. No,
my mistake. The load time between battles is 13 to 20 seconds.
Awesome.
Not 20 to 40.
Boy, as someone who played King of Fighters for the PlayStation 1, where between each round it had to load your character in.
That's wild.
Because
you know what I think the shittiest game to ever have that problem is? Final Fantasy VI on the PlayStation 1.
Oh,
requires like multiple seconds of loading to get into every single random battle.
Chrono Trigger. Like, yeah, Chrono Trigger as well on the Chronicle Collection.
It's just like, oh my fucking god, why did you even bother?
Yeah. KOF, where you have to wait the length of an entire round for the character to load in for the next round. Anyway, yeah, I just there were bugs that I ran throughout that happened throughout the LP, including the item save bug where like your save would get corrupted and your item inventory would be filled up with junk and shit you didn't own.
Oh, I never got that one. Holy fuck.
Happened multiple times and apparently is a common PC issue. You can just you can shut the game down and reload an old save to avoid it, but it happened at least 2-3 times on camera. And then I want to say the game crashed once or twice off camera as well, but that is the absolute peak worst possible. I think that's the worst one in the history of this Let's Playing thing I've been doing as a career.
Yeah, I think the last PC port that they did that was like kind of iffy was Kiwami 2, and everything after that has been like rock solid.
A crash on the last moment after an hour of fucking play, with no saving because it's the point of no return, understandably, is just absolutely batshit. And I felt like robbed in the way I felt like when you had to, I don't know if you remember sort of the Berserk on the Dreamcast, but like the finale of that game similarly has a last hour that's really fucking hard, and you die and you have to restart the whole sequence and there's just no way around it. In this case, it was also just like late and it was a matter of time. But a couple of people were just like, no, go do it, go load it up. And I'm like, fuck this, we're going to YouTube.
What about
I don't need that save clear.
Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog also did this to you.
That amplified the LP. Yeah, that was destiny. It couldn't be any better. I mean, one of the greatest pop-offs of all time at Shadow the Hedgehog just dying. The fucking best. Yeah. No, if it were any sooner than that fight, it honestly would have been worse because then I'd have to like not experience a fight, which I want to.
Oh yeah.
So at least it was like, hey, gameplay is over now. Just watch the rest. And so that's what we did. And I guess I'll never get that clear Achievo on my fucking account.
That's fine. You're not itching to fight Amon, are you?
I'm good. Is that the secret boss?
That is the secret boss.
I hear he's lame and terrible.
So that secret boss was relegated to the side quest dimension permanently all the way up until Infinite Wealth, where he entered himself into the main plot as an unavoidable story character.
That's funny.
And made it canon that Kiryu, in fact, had beat up Amon.
Okay.
The whole time, no problem.
On that note, it is silly that like the money that you're fighting over in the plot is just a regular shakedown, of which you've quintupled many times over by that point.
Well, remember, you're still flip-flopping between the nonsense direction.
Yeah. Also, it sucks that there's no resolution to the shakedown stories. They just kind of go on
No, they
forever.
got money and they went to space to become the world's strongest creature.
But like you keep running into them and they just have their last line of repeating dialogue. And I was hoping for some like side quest end kind of thing, but anyway. That's all said and done. Yeah, that was great. I get it. It was absolute nonsense. I look forward to the further adventures of compromised morals and ethics that that exist here. It just seems so insane when you're playing the game through the lens of the director and writers speaking to you, as opposed to the actual characters.
There is some, like, they have built this series in such a way that it's like really fascinating, because as you go through it now, characters will flip-flop because the games you're playing are released in a strange order. Like Kiryu in 1 is like kind of a fucking brute. Like he's an asshole.
Okay.
Like there's that animated gif of him just slapping the fucking shit out of Haruka.
Okay.
She's not even talking mess. Like she just won't shut up, and he's like, pow. but also every game makes sure to include something really emotionally resonant from 2 or 3 games ago.
Right. Right.
So like 3 for the longest time was like, you can just ignore 3. You can just like nothing in 3 will ever come back. And then Gaiden and Infinite Wealth were like, we're gonna use the core of 3 story as like the mandatory emotional narrative for this whole game. So if you didn't play 3, figure it out, idiot.
You know, everyone who is face captured and performing is incredible. All the Tojo bosses and that crew are just fantastic, you know. Seeing
a lot of them are comedy actors, which is really funny.
That's wild. Yeah. I mean, I would expect that, or just dudes from actual Yakuza movies.
Like the guy who plays Kuze has a long history in Yakuza film.
Exactly. That makes a ton of, like, you can just see the face. You're like, oh yeah, you.
Also, bro, what is that? Like 7 boss fights?
He like Kuze takes all the beatings for the whole group. Like Awano gets it once. Shibusawa gets it once. Kuze takes like 5. Yeah, and I mean, he's great though. He's great. He really, I don't mind it. He's awesome.
It's like, oh man, when you were in your 20s, you were where I am right now. Because you're a tough ass old man.
But then to just have him and them standing next to fucking Lao Gui, just evil zombie resurrected from from you know.
I want you to know that
PS1 face
version.
I know.
Yakuza 0.
I saw
was replaced.
They have someone else's face there. Yeah, it's another guy. It's not like a super like young hot K-pop star or anything. You know, like it's just another guy, but it's a real person's face with a mustache.
Check out this evil Chinese guy over here. Oh my god.
And then same for Shimano, the evil boss over Majima, who's just absolute like zombie kingpin madness. You don't look human. It's insane how unhuman they look. Yeah. Yeah. Big old fat evil. Good stuff. Good stuff. I like it when my shit doesn't crash. Shout outs to the worst one in my entire LP.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.